Hello, it is one of my favourite videos to film every year, and that is what I read last year. We're now on the 4th of January, so it is in fact last year, but you know, better late than never. Is this annoying, by the way? I never know, it always bothers me when I see myself in the viewfinder, the ring light, but I don't actually notice it in anybody else's videos, so I don't know if I could kind of just film like this, and then I'll just take my glasses off, but now I can't see, so I'm going to leave the glasses on, but let me know in the comments, is this annoying? I should also add that this ring light is very bright, so I can only kind of see, but it's all good. Right, let's have a look at my... Oh, let's not do that. Let's have a look at my reading spreadsheet for last year. So the first thing that I'm going to say without even looking at this is I did not read many physical books. I really fell behind in my physical book reading last year. I don't know why, it just happened. I started a new job, that's probably why. But my audiobook reading definitely went up. So I set a goal of 30 and I actually beat that goal if you include the audiobooks. Now it's up to you if you include them or not. I semi-do, but in this case, I did beat it with the audiobooks, I didn't without. So we're going to start by having a look at the individual books. I don't have, I think, any of them here in York, so I'm not going to be able to hold them up like I normally do, but I will put the cover right here. So I'm going to start with the 3-star reads, because I normally do it by stars. I didn't have any 2-star reads this year, so we're going to start with the 3 stars. And we will start with the normal books, and then I will tell you the audiobooks. Okay, so to start with the 3-star paperbacks, there is 4 of these. I have Tyne and Weird by Robert Kilburn, which was sort of short stories about weird things that had happened in my local area up in Newcastle. Yeah, it was fine. I gave it 3 stars. It was interesting. I haven't read a book like it before, but it wasn't excellently well written in my opinion anyway. The Man in the High Castle by Philip K. Dick. I've read other Philip K. Dick books and really enjoyed them. This one I found a little bit hard to follow. Wasn't my favourite of his work, to be honest. Next one we have Severed, a story of heads lost and heads found by Francis Larson. This was a story about severed heads. Not a story, a book, it was non-fiction. And I just found it really, really slow. It should have been really exciting. I didn't find it particularly exciting though. I Hate Everyone But You by Gabby, Dunn and Alison Raskin. This wasn't aimed at me. I enjoyed it, I got through it quite quickly, I still finished it, I still gave it 3 stars, but it wasn't aimed at me, and also it was also very clearly about Gabby and Alison as well. The 2 characters were very clearly just Gabby and Alison, which is fine, but it wasn't what I really wanted as a reader. I have 2 3-star audiobooks. I have Rivers of London by Ben Arronovich. Interesting premise. He, as an author, said quite a few things in a tone that I wasn't very happy about quite often. I don't think me and Ben would get on very well. The Pandemic Century by Mark Honigsbaum. I'm sure that's how you pronounce it. I listened to quite a few audiobooks about the pandemic, and this one I don't think was my favourite one. I think it explained things and I learned things from it, but I'm not going to re-listen to it. So we have, again, physical books, 4 stars. So we've got Heroes by Stephen Fry. I really enjoyed this. Again, it's quite heavy, which is why I didn't give it 5 stars. I didn't, eat it up or anything like that, but it wasn't really a book that was designed to be like that, so that's okay with me. The Advent of Stickleback Hollow by C.S. Woolley. Read all these books in this series. I'm sure you guys have heard me go on about this enough by now. This one's a fun one. Tell me I've been doing a degree. Case Studies on Climate Change and World Heritage by UNESCO. That was an ebook. I read the whole book and it wasn't on Goodreads, but I was like, I read this whole book, so I'm putting it on Goodreads. It's absolutely not a different day. My camera absolutely didn't run out of charge. Let's just keep going. Then I read Cats in Medieval Manuscripts by Kathleen Walker Makel. I can't read my own handwriting. That was a lot of fun. I read it in about maybe an hour or so when our electricity was off because there was someone doing some electricity things, so I couldn't do any of my work. because at the time my laptop needed to be plugged in because it was broken. So I sat for an hour and read that, and it was all just about cats and medieval manuscripts. It was great. It was a great fun hour and a half. Alice Isn't Dead by Joseph Fink. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars because I think there was some bits that, like, I don't know, there was some bits that dragged on a little bit, and I didn't particularly like the ending either, but the whole vibe and the concept I really, really enjoyed. I read it basically in one sitting, and this is the same with like all Night Vale stuff, because if you don't know, Joseph Fink is one of the writers on Night Vale. Alice Isn't Dead is a podcast that they do as well. It's not related to Night Vale, but it has a very similar vibe, and I find with a lot of this kind of stuff that, like, it's supposed to be sort of horror-esque, and most of it I find particularly fine, but there'll just be one scene where for no reason whatsoever it, like, really gets to me. And there was one scene in this book that, like, I still think about sometimes. It was just one very, like, short description of something, and it just, I don't know. Okay, let's do 4-star audiobooks. The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry by Rachel Joyce. This was kind of fun. I don't think it was really aimed at me, but it was a fun audiobook, a story about Harold Fry who just a random guy who just, like, one day drops everything and goes on this, like, ridiculously long walk to meet someone. I won't tell you anymore in case you read it, but it was kind of fun. It was kind of sweet. I don't really think it was aimed at me though. A History of Britain in 21 Women by Jenny Murray. I remember being a little bit disappointed by the people who were represented in this book. I was hoping to learn about some women that, like, I hadn't heard before. I don't think I did. I think everything in there was, like, pretty much exactly what I expected, and I did learn some things. I was just hoping to learn new things where I feel like it was just sort of retelling me knowledge that I already had, for the most part anyway. Love, Simon by Becky Albertalli. I would have really liked this like 10 years ago. Don't really think it's aimed at me now. The Dig by John Preston. I gave this 4 stars because it was very romance heavy, and that's not what I wanted. I wanted it to be about archaeology, which is like, is that a stupid reason to give it 4 stars? Well, here we are. I wanted more archaeology and less of the actual plot, please. The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, I really enjoyed. Again, I thought there were some scenes that carried on a little bit too long for me. Maybe I'm just impatient. But I do intend to listen to the rest of the series. I really enjoyed the concept and the characters, so I'm definitely sticking with that one. Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman. I think the first time I listened to this, I gave it 5 stars. I enjoyed it a little bit less on the re-listen. I also know a little bit more about Norse mythology than I did when I first listened to it, so it might be that I just wasn't interested, because quite a few of the stories I know quite well by now. But yeah, I still enjoyed it, and will probably listen to it again in a year's time, because I really need to be up to date on my Norse mythology knowledge for reasons related to my life. Right, let's do 5-star books. The Last Chance to See by Douglas Adams. I don't know why it took me so long to read this, but this was a really, really good book. I learned a lot from this. I got invested in things that I never thought I'd be invested in, but essentially it is Douglas Adams, author of The Hitchhiker's Guide, if you don't know, going to visit animals that basically there's like 5 of them left, and trying to find them. Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs by Caitlin Doughty. Again, Caitlin Doughty, anything by the Caitlin writes I'm gonna love. This was probably the least favourite of her books for me. I think it was more sort of aimed at children, or at least could be read by children, whereas I prefer the like nitty gritty death stuff like her other books have, but I still enjoyed it a lot. The Penelope Ad by Margaret Atwood. This was quite short, but again, I enjoyed it a lot. I should read more Margaret Atwood. I think every book that I've read by Margaret Atwood or listened to, I've given 5 stars. I have one of her books on my shelf. I really should read it. The Toll by Neil Shusterman. Excellent series. The Size series, so good. I had to spread them out because I didn't want to read them all at once. I didn't really want to finish the series, but like someone who likes like dystopian novels and also is really interested in like how we as a society interact with death, like this series was like made for me. I love this so much. The Last Olympian by Rick Riordan. If you don't know, I'm trying to read through all of Rick Riordan's work, and The Last Olympian is the last one in the original Percy Jackson series. I really enjoyed it. It was a good ending. I felt like it wrapped things up nicely, which is all I asked for from the last book in the series. And yeah, I did enjoy it. Easy to read because they're aimed at an audience younger than me, but also it definitely doesn't feel patronising, so like I can read it without feeling like I'm reading a kid's book. And Another Thing by Ian Colfer, which is either the last book in the Hitchhiker's Guide series or like a spin-off of the Hitchhiker's Guide, depending on your point of view. I'd never read this. I don't know why I'd never read it, but of course I really enjoyed it. I knew I was going to really enjoy it. Hope and Other Luxuries by Gabby Dunkle, and then also along with this, Elena Vanishing by Elena Dunkle. These are depressing books. These are hard to read, so I won these both in a Goodreads giveaway years ago, and I read Elena Vanishing when I got it, and it is an autobiography about Elena, who's, you know, a real person, and her struggles with an eating disorder. And then her mum also wrote about this from her point of view, with Hope and Other Luxuries. And I just picked up Hope and Other Luxuries like by chance because I went home and I finished my book. So I went back to my parents, I finished my book, and I just like picked up the first book I could find, read it, and was like, this was excellent. It is very well written, hard read but really good. And then as soon as I finished it, I was like, well, now I want to reread the book from Elena's point of view, which is a lot shorter. It's like, I don't ask me how many pages, but like Elena's book's like that big, and then like our mother's book's like that big. So like there is a difference. So I was like, I'll quickly read Elena's book because it'll be nice to have, you know, the comparison. So those were a few weeks of reading that were pretty heavy, but really enjoyed them both. And possibly the best book that I read this year, A Beautifully Foolish Endeavour by Hank Green. I mean, I was like blown away by these two books, A Beautifully Foolish Endeavour and An Absolutely Remarkable Thing. They were just so good. I remember when I originally heard that Hank Green was coming out with a book, I was worried that like it wasn't going to be great. He does a lot of projects, he spreads himself quite thin. I needn't have been worried. It was so good. I already want to reread the two books, sorry. I'm gonna wait a little bit so I can forget as much as possible because I just want to experience it again, because they were like excellent sci-fi / social commentary, like done so well. I fully wholeheartedly believe that these are like sci-fi classics in the making. And then 5-star audiobooks, we have North Korea Journal by Michael Palin. This wasn't very long at all, but it was very interesting. I don't really know that much about North Korea, and if you want to learn some from a very level perspective, I would check that one out. Written in Bone by Sue Black. I love Sue Black. Anything that she writes I'm gonna enjoy. She's a forensic anthropologist, I think the word is, but essentially she writes about skeletons and about how our life is reflected on our skeleton, and as an archaeologist who's interested in human remains, again, excellent. These are so good, and she's brilliant. This is called Hurt by Adam Kay. Again, not the most fun of reading. Not the most intense either. So we have A Life on Our Planet by David Attenborough. So good, a little bit depressing, but also quite hopeful at the same time. Really enjoyed that. I've never read anything by David Attenborough before. Has he written anything before that? I assume he has. Really enjoyed, and of course narrated by him, which like you can't lose there really. He's got the best voice ever. When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalendey. The cover's up here. I can't read my own handwriting once again. Another book by a healthcare professional. I've read quite a few of them, listened to quite a few of them this year. And another excellent one. Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harris. Yuval Noah Harris? I don't know how to pronounce that word. I'm doing great here. I really enjoyed it. I don't actually think I learned much from this. I think most of the stuff that was in it is kind of archaeology stuff, a lot of it, and then like social commentary stuff, which like we know because we live in a society. I read it as almost like a really interesting way of looking at things, and it was just very well written. It was essentially just an essay on what it means to be human. A Promised Land by Barack Obama. I didn't enjoy this as much as Becoming by Michelle, but I did enjoy it. It was so long, and it is only the first one. Apparently there's another one. I don't know if it's come out yet, but there's going to be a second one. But yeah, he has led a very interesting life, as I expected, and he has a very interesting perspective on things, again, as you would expect, but not as good as Becoming, I'm afraid. So that is everything that I read / listened to, so let's have a look at some of my statistics. What can I tell you about those? Hello, it's Editing Amy, and I've realised that I'm probably not going to tell you anything about those because I'm going to split this video into two parts because it is already currently 14.5 minutes long, probably 15 by the time this gets put in. So I'm going to put the stats in a video that's going to come out next week, so keep an eye out for that, and I will see you in the next part. Bye.